The other thing is not all wheels are built the same. Some of them, you know, the on and off is a little different. You'll kind of get familiar with what that looks like. Some of the wheels have an option to go forward or reverse. Is anybody left-handed? Yes. Okay. Just kidding. It's not. Left-handers are awesome. You want to go forward because you're not left-handed and you're not Japanese. So you might be Japanese. Okay. So if for instance, like the wheel's on, it's not going, it's probably because this toggle switch between forward and backward is just in the middle and you need to pick one. This is a good time to give my disclaimer that clay washes out of everything. So if you want to wear an apron, there's aprons available to you, but it's just fancy dirt. So, all right. So, first rule is dry clay, dry wheel. So obviously my clay's not dry, but it's not slimy, right? And this isn't, which is easy because I'm just starting, but it's gonna get a little more difficult as I go. But the reason that that's important is because if there's moisture between the contact surface with this clay and the wheel, it's not gonna stick. It's just gonna fly off and hit you in the head, and that doesn't sound fun. So you don't have to, I mean, some people like really like to throw it, that's fine. But the biggest thing is just try to get it in the middle. So I just want it to be there. I want it to be stuck before I add any moisture. All right, sorry, I got a sore throat, guys. All right, now I can add water. So I already showed you my guillotine tool. It's what I use. It's kind of this nice full circle tool because it's what I use to get the clay out of the bag. It's also what I'm going to use to get my pot off the wheel. Now I'm going to use water. One of the things that's nice about pottery wheels, so the pedal is much like your gas pedal on your car. You rock it forward, it goes. It's less like your gas pedal on your car in that I can take my foot off and I'm still driving down the road. So it's terrifying if you were in your car, but it's kind of nice for our purposes because I can set the wheel, especially if I'm learning, I can set the wheel at what I, will be taught is an appropriate speed for whatever stage I'm at in throwing, and I can kind of push it aside. And that way my mind can focus on what my hands are doing because you're going to try to completely reteach your body how to hold itself. And I don't have to worry about like this foot over here that's like fast, slow, fast, slow. So while you're learning for the first time, I would suggest doing that because it's just easier. So you'll also notice that this stool is like right up as close to the wheel as I can get. And then my body is right up as close to the wheel as I can get. And that's because I'm going to use my whole body. Throwing is not just our hands, it's not even just our arms, it's our whole body. So now I can add water. I've got my speed going at an appropriate speed for what I'm going to be doing. I could be a little bit faster. And every wheel is going to be different, this pedal is real touchy. All right. So the first step in throwing is called centering. It's pretty self-explanatory. We're going to try to get this lump of clay evenly in the center of the wheel. I'm going to use these nice meaty parts of my hands here. And this left one is going to be pushing in, and this right one is going to be pushing down. And I'm going to find, so you can kind of see what's happening here, right? Here, here, and here. And notice how I'm also my hands are one object. And my elbows are part of my triangular body. So I might come around later tonight, especially if you're just learning, and tell you have chicken elbows. And what that means is you're doing this, or some fashion of this. And it's just not as strong as you could be. So the other thing that you'll see me do is I'm kind of squeezing. I'm not pulling, I'm just squeezing. And the clay has nowhere to go but up, right? And so that's sort of just getting the clay to start to move and settle in to the middle. So again, I'm pushing down. At this moment, it's more downward pressure. Now I'm going to find an even balance between in and down. So If I'm making a pancake, I'm too strong with my right hand. I need to find better balance, bring that left hand into play. If I'm always making a cone and trying to start a pot like this is a little hard. So you might have to work on your downward pressure. It's finding a balance, and that sort of up-down rhythm is helpful for you to get a feel for what that means in finding a balance between those two forms of pressure.
When you're pushing that up to make a cone, show me where you're pushing with what part of your hand.
Like when I was trying to.
Yes.
So I'm still kind of using this bottom part of my hand. I'm using this area.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm not pulling up. I'm
pushing.
just pushing in, and the clay it can't go down, right? And it can't go out because I'm holding, so it's got to go up. So I'm gonna elbows down. I'm gonna find an even pressure between down and in. So a lot of people are gonna ask, how do I know, or is it centered? The smart ass answer is, if you have to ask, it's not centered. But when the clay doesn't look like it's moving anymore, right? So clearly it's moving, but it's in the middle, so that the spinning motion. I don't have any wobbles. That's a good way to put it. I don't have any wobbles. This is kind of a good place to start, because having a flat bottom is going to help me in the rest of the processes. Like I said, if you had more of a cone shape, maybe it won't be as easy. So the other thing you saw me doing is I'll come in with my thumb on the right hand side and was kind of cleaning up this slime stuff that builds up here as I'm trying to center, because I want this hand to be on the wheel, right? Not sliding around on slime. So, centered, step one, right? It took me 2 weeks to learn how to center in school. I was also 17 and didn't care that much, but it's not an easy thing to learn. It's actually probably I think a lot of cars would tell you it's the hardest thing to learn, but it's step one. So as you can imagine, it's a domino effect on everything else. So you don't have to center before you can move forward onto the next steps, but it's gonna make it a whole hell of a lot easier, right? So it's gonna take persistence and it's gonna take time, but it pays off. So step 2 is opening, which really consists of 2 different actions. So again, elbows down. I'm gonna ski my finger in, and this is how I'm gonna find the middle, right? The part that isn't moving right there in the middle. And I'm adding water anytime it's not slimy. There should be no pressure. So I'm gonna push down. Again, my elbows are nice and firm against my thighs. Now, if I wanted to make something that was bottomless, which you might, I would go all the way. Typically, you don't want to, so you want to have a bottom to your pot. But I don't want a bottom that's too thick, because it's it's the potential for cracking because of the difference in thicknesses is high. It will take very long to dry, and it might blow up in the kiln. So, too thick, not good. Too thin, also not good, because when I go to take it off the wheel, I might cut through the bottom. So there's a happy medium. It's around 1/4 of an inch, which you're not gonna know what that feels like for a while. So a good way to figure that out is to stop your wheel. And I still do this when I'm throwing things that are not familiar forms to me. Stick my needle tool in. Looks pretty good, right? So clay is amazing in so many ways, but one of them is that it shrinks so much. It will surprise you. So keep in mind, the 1/4 of an inch rule is also there so that, you don't get through the 2 firing processes and the bottom of your glazed pot is paper thin, So, 1/4 of an inch. So I've just got a hole right now, right? And I guess I could start making walls, but that's a really tiny pot, and this is a lot of clay. So now I'm gonna think about what kind of pot I'm trying to make. And I'm gonna open the pot according to that. So if I'm gonna make a cup, I'm not gonna open it as wide as if I wanted to make a bowl. Bowls are a great place to start if you're just starting. The wheel naturally helps you. The centrifugal force will help you kind of splay that bowl open. Cups are a little harder, especially if you want it to be straight up and down, because that centrifugal force is working against you. I'm going to demo a bowl right now, and then if everybody feels like they want another demo before the next up, I can do a cup and kind of talk about the differences and what I'm thinking about. So if I'm going to do a bowl, I'm going to open this. So again, my elbows are down, and I'm showing you my way of doing this. You're going to see somebody else throwing next to you in a couple days when you come into work and feel like that's not how Amanda did it. But try it. Find out what works for you. Some people, will pull towards them. I like to use both my thumbs and pull open. So elbows down, and I'm keeping the bottom flat. So I'm not pushing down, I'm just pulling out. Okay? And then I'm gonna clean up some of this water in here. And this next step seems insignificant, but it's very important. I'm going to compress the bottom of this pot. So I'm using my thumb, and I'm going against the current. You're gonna hear me use that terminology a lot, with the current, against the current. So on the left-hand side, against the current, with my elbow down. I'm not pushing down really hard. I'm just compressing and smoothing. And I'm working from the outside to the inside. From the outside to the inside, okay? So one, I have a nice flat bottom now to start with. I've compressed it so all the clay platelets, instead of being all hanging out however they want to, I've laid them all down. So now they're like shingles on a roof. And they're gonna keep moisture out. And they're gonna keep the bottom of your pot from soaking up moisture the whole time that you're throwing and increasing the rate of cracking. So by laying down those shingles, I'm reducing that fact, okay? So there's a very important thing that happens when I open. Instead of having one mass of clay in the center, I now have two sides, right? So the river that's moving away from me and the current that's coming towards me, right? So once I open, I'm gonna completely change where my hands are. My right hand side is gonna work on the outside of the pot always. No longer does it go in here. My left hand on the inside. So adding water. Again, elbows down. When you're pulling walls, you're gonna use your fingertips. You're gonna figure out what works for you. I'm sure that Nina now pulls completely different than the way that I showed her, because she's gotten enough miles on her hands that she's just naturally, intuitively figured out what works for her. So pulling it's counterintuitive, right? It's another one of those terms. It's like, I'm not pulling, I'm just pinching in, and the clay has nowhere to go but up. So I'm gonna pinch in, not a lot. It's gonna be a gradual thinning, right? So my first pull is step one, step two, right? You don't wanna do you're not gonna do all your wall in one pull. It's not gonna happen, you'll just rip all the clay off. And you wanna think about a gradual thinness. Like you continually, so your first pull, your walls are still gonna be pretty thin. You're gonna work gradually from there. So I'm gonna pinch in a certain distance, and then I'm gonna maintain that distance as I move up. Notice my wheel speed has not changed. So pinching in, pulling up. Adding water. At this point, like once you start getting walls going, you can kind of bring it, especially if you're just starting to learn, just a little bit. You don't want to go too slow, which is what Nina likes to do a lot. So, and you'll see me do this too. And I kind of like to create that just a little place for my outside fingers to start with. So obviously my outside fingers are lower than my inside fingers, right? because I've got the floor of the pot on the inside. So when I get to the top, I don't just want to let go. I gotta get to the top. Take a deep breath. And let go gently. Right? Alright. I'm gonna do a couple more pulls. Again, making a trench with my thumb. I'm gonna go pinch in. Now I'm pulling just slightly out, right? Because the wheel's gonna help me. So I don't want to go crazy with it. I'm gonna get to the top. I'm gonna go gently.
That shit is so much harder than she's making it.
I like it.
Don't even think.
Notice I've got one elbow down in this stance, right? But I'm anchored. As long as I'm anchored, you figure out what works for you.
So your left thumb is pinching, or is it a guide for your hand at their bow as it goes up?
Let's see. So I don't really think about these things when I'm in my studio anymore. You know, it's been long enough. Like, I started teaching class in November, and I was like, oh yeah, I have to narrate what I'm doing. All right. My thumb is not doing anything.
Okay, so you're making a groove.
If you want to come over here,
Yeah.
you can get it. Come get. I don't have a space bubble. I'm not contagious. I just have a sore throat. I've just been working too much. But so I'm using these parts of my finger. This is kind of just holding this movement. So I'm pinching in from both sides. Now, I made this beautiful pot. I want to give it to my grandma. All right, I've decided I'm done with this pot. Yours isn't gonna look like this. Or you're gonna get. I'm gonna show how you do rainbows in a second. Got this beautiful pot, but before I take it off the wheel, there's going to be a couple things I want to do. One, I want to dry it off as much as I can. Obviously, I'm not going to take a towel to it, but I'm going to take this rib to it and get the slime off, at least the outside, because I have to get this sucker off of here without dropping it or squishing it, okay? So, I use very few tools. There are potters who use so many more tools than me, but this thing, I use a lot. I'm going to use the angled part. And I'm going to follow this curve that I've already created to just trim this little bit off right now. Because why not? Why would I just leave that on there and wait for it to get hard and dry and not be able to use that clay? Which, I mean, it doesn't seem like a lot, but you know, with this one pot, but if I was going to make 10 of these, right? Clean up this, because I don't want that on my pot when I gotta use the cube. And then I'm gonna use this. On the outside, I'm gonna use this will give you a really gnarly paper cut. Be careful. And just very, ever so gently pressing outward. Not very hard at all. I'm gonna just clean up all that slime and sludge. And now I've got, you know, a relatively slimeless pot. Okay. And I cleaned out the water from the inside because I don't want it to continue to saturate the bottom because then I'll end up with a big crack. So, by the way, I didn't ask you guys like my space buns. I'm having a really good hair day today. Alright. So I'm gonna get this pot off here and I'm gonna get it on my board. I'm gonna do it. Alright. So, full circle with this tool, right? I am gonna hold it down with my thumbs, because if I don't, it's gonna go wee up right through the middle of my pot and it's gonna suck. So, pulling it down, pulling towards me, just like that. All right, now it's detached. I've detached it. I can't go back and start spinning it around and doing stuff to it, okay? Really dry hands. This is why I wear aprons. So excited. All right. Come on. This place is real sticky. Alright. I know, it looks like a taco, but watch. Boing. Alright. Voila, you made 20.